Welcome to Inner Voice of Knowing podcast. I'm Kay Doran, a shamanic leadership coach and healer, guiding you through life with a foot in both worlds. When you understand the terrain of the inner landscapes, the mental, emotional, spiritual, and energetic, you will become the leader within your physical life, both personally and professionally. After all, the power of change is in your hands. Let's get this journey started. Welcome everybody back to Inner Voice of Knowing. I know that I get excited about every guest, and I do, because I said that I'd only have incredibly special people on that I feel deeply aligned with, even if I don't know them very well. I've literally only had one or two conversations with this next guest, and I just fell in love with the woman that she is and the work that she does. So originally from Brazil, now living over east in Victoria, is it?
In Sydney.
Oh, in Sydney, sorry. Yep. Mariana Franco. So Mariana, welcome to the podcast.
Oh, thank you, Kay. Thank you for the lovely words and thank you for having me here. I'm very excited.
Well, let's tell people a little bit what you do, and they'll notice from the accent that you are from Brazil, living and doing business here in Sydney.
Yes.
So you're a clinical nutritionist and a behavioural nutrition for 3 years. And you say that you give knowledge with a hug. And after having a conversation with you, you're a bit different than the normal nutritionist. Why don't you explain to the listeners your take on what you do?
Absolutely, yes. You said everything. I like giving information with a hug. For me, it's very important that people feel they are in a safe place every time we're talking about body and nutrition. I chose to work with this behavioral approach, which is bringing science and behavior together, because that way we can truly help women to break free from that cycle of yo-yo dieting and fighting with the scales and have body image issues. It's a real special way of doing what I do. When I finished uni, I was fully equipped with all the technical knowledge that a nutritionist need. So, you can go on and talk about chronic conditions and prevention and management and nutritional deficiencies. But it was just a matter of time for me to realize that I needed a little bit more. I start looking at people as very unique individuals,
Yes.
that have emotions, that have habits and culture. And it's not only about calories, it's not only about nutrients, it's about the relationship they have with food. And I've been going, I've been just loving this journey since I started. It has been an absolute pleasure. And I love talking about that, as you will see.
I love that, because part of our spiritual development, of course, is the nutrition aspect, and part of self-worth and self-love is how we feel about ourselves and in our bodies. And I love when you said about, the fight with the scales. I've gone up and down a lot of my life. I'm sort of all over it now, but it really did feel like, the fight against food, or with food, the fight against the scales and the disappointment. And it seemed for me, and I've watched with other people over years, it sort of perpetuates the problem. Would you agree?
Absolutely does. Yes, we live in a culture that demonizes food. And as you said, food is actually what we need to complete our journey. We need to be well nourished. We need to have a good relationship with food. And yes, we do need to find pleasure in eating. It's very important that as well. But because this culture that says that you have to be scared of carbohydrates, scared of fats, and that same culture says that you have to fit in a little box. You need to have a certain body shape. You need to have a certain weight. And, that doesn't take in consideration our uniqueness. It doesn't take in consideration our culture, our genetics, where we came from. And it's very detrimental to women's, not only the body, because the body suffers, but also the self-esteem and the psychological aspects of dieting can be so negative.
Oh my gosh, I agree. And so many diet, and everything changes all the time. So,
Absolutely.
once upon a time, growing up, eggs were great. Then eggs went through a phase where they're not great. Now they're really fantastic again. And it gets lost. And I don't know your take on this because I'm also getting to know your work through this podcast, but I feel like there's like all things in balance. And I went through 10 years of bullying in the workplace, as well as being on the other side of menopause. And I'd put on 20 kilos, which I'd never done before. And there were so many layers to it. I know someone said to me once, don't you ever move? And I'm like, oh my God, I am running 7 locations out at an airport. I'm constantly moving. But I learned that I wasn't eating enough, that I was so miserable in the environment that I was in, that was impacting me. There's more than just one cause, isn't there, for what's happening with us and our bodies?
Yes, I'm sorry to hear about your experience, Kay. You would be surprised, or maybe not. You won't be surprised to know that there's a lot of women going through that.
Yeah.
And some women go through that their whole lives. And as you said, it's layers. Diet culture taught us that it's just about calorie intake and it's just about burning calories at the gym. But the truth is there's so many layers to it. There's trauma, there is physiological changes, hormonal changes, there is emotional aspects of eating. And there is also the natural changes that happen in a woman in a woman body during her lifetime. I mean, if you look at a young girl at the age of 13, the changes that are going to happen in her body, it is normal that at that age we put on a little bit of weight. Our body is ready; it's getting ready for conception. And that changes throughout life. It changes every month according to our menstrual cycle. And then towards the 40s and 50s, it starts changing again because of perimenopause and menopause. If only we were taught that that was normal.
Yes.
If only we knew that it's normal for our body to change. And as long as we keep feeding our body well and moving our body well, it's very unlikely that we're going to develop issues that we see today. So one thing that I find very interesting, Kay, as you said, there's so much information out there. Isn't it funny that with so much information, the numbers of obesity and chronic diseases related to health and nutrition, they just through the roof.
Yes.
I mean, if information was good for us, we will be in a much better place, right?
Yeah. And you know what? It's crazy. My husband and I talk about this quite often, that in the generation where we grew up, there wasn't a lot of obesity compared to now. We were sort of raised on, meat and veg and salads and yogurt that wasn't sweetened like it is now. But I think there was more activity. Yes. But now there's so much conflicting information. It's so confusing. Who's telling the truth?
It is very confusing. And if you look at the supermarket shelves, like the section that sells diet products gets bigger and bigger every year. And those products are heavily processed. So we have massive companies with a lot of money behind them telling women that we should start having meal replacements and having protein bars and weight loss bars and cereals. If you look at the ingredients list, they are heavily processed. So those companies are making money by telling us that we should eat highly processed foods. And then on the other hand, they also bringing fear into our life, the fear of eating carbohydrates, the fear of eating fats, the fear of eating altogether. It's what push women towards the yo-yo dieting cycle. And many women, unfortunately, end up with eating disorders because of that.
So true. So true. So when did you sort of bring this different approach to just seeing every woman coming in having the same sort of nutrition presented to them? When did you feel that, or was it from the beginning that, every woman that walks through the door is multi-layered and therefore I must look at her as multi-layered and as an individual?
It was a process. I remember being at uni in a sports nutrition class. And, at uni, we have to learn all aspects of nutrition. And that was very important for my formation. But I remember there's a specific class showing how women who go through body competition, the bodybuilding competitions, they struggle with their hormonal health. Most of them don't menstruate, they cannot have kids. And the protocol to help these women to achieve their goals were so restrictive, so restrictive. And deep inside in my soul, I'm thinking, this is not all right. This is not, with all due respect, I have so much admiration for women who are so focused and so determined. But deep inside, I decided that was not what I was going to do. I was not going to do sports nutrition. I was not going to do dietary restriction. And then when I started practicing, I started hearing a lot of women coming to me saying, oh, I've tried so many diets. I've seen so many nutritionists and dietitians. I've done surgery. I've used appetite suppressants, drugs, injections, and I know everything about nutrition.
Yes.
Yet I'm here again. And I'm like, okay, so let's start looking for the missing piece. And that's when I realized that I didn't want to be another person prescribing diets. I wanted to be someone helping these women to find the missing piece. And the missing piece, Kay, it's with that beautiful work that you and your guests are always talking about here in this podcast. It's being able to get in touch with your emotions and understand what your body is saying to you, and get in contact with nature and with cooking and putting your hands in food again, which is something that's getting rarer and rarer. Because
why is that, Mariana? Sorry to cut you off, but why is that? Because I love it. And I know, with my grandkids, when my kids were little, I've got a girlfriend and we're godparents to them. They'll come over and we'll be making a cake or something, and it's like that, getting the hands into food. Why does that make us feel so good?
That is so much fun, isn't it?
It is.
Connection with food is one of our, it's one of the basics. It's one of these primitive instincts that we have, like looking for food, being with food, searching for food, making food. That's something that's very ours, like from the human perspective. That's what we do. But then comes in a society that always pushes to our limits. We're working, we're studying, we always striving for more. We need to be on top of our game. We need to take kids to school. And then it's so much easier to get your mobile phone and order a food that's going to arrive ready in your home, or get someone to cook for you, or maybe go to the supermarket and buy a ready-to-eat meal.
Yes.
And this is sad for our generation, Kay, but it's even more concerning for the young generation, because at least you and I, we had this experience with our grandparents and with our parents, but the kids these days, they are losing touch with food altogether. If you show an eggplant to many kids out there, they won't be able to name what that is.
Yeah, true. And that's a beautiful food, eggplant, aubergine. I love it.
It is.
But do you think that when we're interacting with food that way, we're creating that love relationship with it? And then when we sit and eat it, and we've been part of the creation and putting it all together, even the way then we're eating food that we've, interacted with and created and played with to a certain degree, that we're taking that energy back in as well as what the food gives us. Is that something you're aligned with? Because I feel very much like that.
Yes, I agree with you. Being in touch with food, it actually helps even physiologically speaking. So when we think about eating, we think that the process starts when we're putting food in our mouth. Mm-hmm. But physiologically speaking, it starts way earlier than that. So once you start touching food, looking at food, smelling those beautiful smells that come when you are preparing food, your digestion system already starts working on your digestion. It's really amazing. The brain perceives through the eyes and through the nose and through your mouth that there is food coming. And that beautiful process starts there. And with that, our hormonal function starts moving as well. So we have hormones that controls hunger and the sense of satiety, which is that sign that says I'm full.
Yeah.
All of that, it's working already for us when we get in touch with food. But if you sit down and you open a box of something that is already made, you had no connection whatsoever with that food, your body doesn't have a clue of what's happening. And most of us will eat in front of a computer or in front of the TV, not even allowing our brain to understand what's going on. So you see a lot of people with reflux and IBS and other digestive issues. And you see people who overeat because they didn't have the chance to understand. Their body didn't understand that they were eating. Therefore, they overeat.
So we sort of rob our body of that preparation experience, and that's amazing.
Exactly.
And so that again can affect reflux and all these different things.
It does. It definitely does. And it also can affect your weight because you end up overeating. Most people who overeat only realize they overate after it's gone, right?
Oh, yes.
That's because the beautiful physiological system that should be working every day is just not working anymore because we got so used to not being in touch with our foods anymore.
Wow.
Yeah.
There's so much more complexity to it. That's amazing.
Yeah.
And I know that I very much like occasionally, yes, we'll do something in front of the telly, but I also like to just sit at the table. Same with my grandkids. It's like TV goes off, whether it's lunch, and we just, and I sit with them and one grandchild, if I make a sandwich, he actually pulls it all apart and handles each ingredient that's actually in it. And I watch him do that. It's just loving the process. He'll pull the cheese out, he'll pull the lettuce out, he'll pull the tomatoes out, and he won't put it all back together. It's like he's doing this exploration of what's in my sandwich, and then I just watch him enjoy eating it all individually. And
it's so beautiful. We have so much to learn from kids, Kay. Yeah. Like if you observe any toddlers or any kids that are going through the very first times that they get in touch with food, they will play with the food. They will feel textures and flavors, and they might spit it out for about 10 times before they decide they like it. But as long as you provide that environment for them to experiment, they are going to love it, and they're going to end up developing the taste for it. What I see very often today is adults that they say that they don't like vegetables, they don't like fruit. And they can only stomach takeaway foods, which are highly palatable. There's a lot of fat, a lot of sugar, a lot of salt. And, they just adapt it to them.
You have one and it's almost like it's got stuff in there that makes you want to get it again.
Yeah, exactly. You want more and more. It's very easy to eat a whole bag of chips, but if you give someone a whole bunch of bananas, they're never going to binge on those bananas because nature made food right. There is no food in nature that contains fat, salt, and sugar all together, and all of them are very packed with fibers. So those fibers fill us up. In the packaged foods that you find in the supermarkets, a whole nother story. They want us to eat more and more so they can make more money.
I love the fact that you say, nature gets it right. And I've gone through that myself when, you stop eating something or you get caught on something else. But when you come back to it, your body naturally loves it. And then I found myself go, I want another salad, or I want more avocado, or do you know what I mean? Or fruit, or whatever it is.
Yeah.
And it's just breaking that habit.
Yes.
And now my stomach can't take lots of oil or fatty things, fried or anything like that, because of the way I've been eating for quite some time now.
Yeah.
Once upon a time it would have been fine. What about eating too fast? What's happening there?
It's a huge problem as well. And I mean, if you just need to watch 3 minutes of television to see what they're selling, right? There's about 10 ads about reflux and heartburn in every single chunk of TV shows that you watch. And reflux is mainly caused by that habit of eating too fast. People don't chew anymore. People eat too fast, and they eat large quantities. So you start having all those side effects, those symptoms that are treated with a Band-Aid solution. So, you go to the chemist and you buy your Gaviscon or whatever antacid, it's available, but you're not actually working on the core issue.
Yeah. Yeah.
This is just the tip of the iceberg. Believe me, Kay, reflux, heartburn, indigestion is just the tip of the iceberg. There's so much more underneath.
So when someone comes to see you, you're unpacking what's created their habits or what's holding them where they are. Is that correct, Mariana?
Yeah, it's a whole journey. It's very beautiful. I love working with people on the long term because, as you said, there's different layers. Every single person that comes to see me have different layers. So, of course, as a nutritionist, I have to address nutrition habits. So we start looking on diet, but not as much as how many calories you put on your plate. Are you eating too much? Should we cut this? No, I go and understand, why is that? Why do you have a croissant for breakfast every morning? Mm-hmm. Oh, it's because I snooze my mobile phone to the very last minute and then I'm rushing and then I don't have time. So do you agree that instead of trying to blame that croissant, we have to start looking at maybe the sleep hygiene on the night before? Why were you so tired in the morning that you couldn't get out of bed? And once we get this person feeling a little bit more organized and energetic in the morning, having a nutritious breakfast is going to be possible. It's going to be a reality and it's going to be easy. But if we don't do that work, there's nothing in this world that's going to help. There's no nutritional advice in this world that's going to help this person to get breakfast on their plate because everything else is a mess.
I love that, because what I'm hearing is what I talk about all the time, which is, what you're doing unconsciously, you can't blame yourself for, but once you become conscious of something, then the choice is then your responsibility. Mm-hmm. So you're bringing what's unconscious, from what I hear you saying, into conscious awareness.
Yes.
And then when you're looking at it, it's like, I love the fact that you say, don't blame the croissant.
It's not the croissant.
It's not the croissant. No, it's not that massive bowl of spaghetti bolognese or whatever it might be. It's something else.
It's something else. And the word awareness is something that I use all the time. I always tell everyone, first step is getting out of that autopilot kind of mode where you do things without thinking. And then we start thinking, then we become aware, we give a name to things if we have to, and then we start working on it. Once you get out of that stage, it's the beauty of this work is that there's no going back. You can never look back. You're never going to go back to square one, because what you learn about you just help you to grow as a human being. And one of the things that women often look for a nutritionist because they want to do some sort of weight management work.
Yeah.
And straight away, I tell everyone, my focus is not weight loss, because I don't want you to lose weight and then, put on again.
Yo.
Exactly. My focus is to fix everything that's underneath your issues, and then weight loss is going to happen naturally. And that's the weight loss that comes and stays, because, you've got your foundations right, instead of just trying to diet and starve your body all the time.
This is another way of self-care. Self-care gets bandied around all the time now. And I had a bath, I was giving myself self-care, and I think that's lovely. But things like this, the way that we eat and understanding those unconscious patterns of behaviors and choices, it sounds really empowering. So aside from people then, they get that weight loss, what happens for them going through this process with you?
Well, my main focus is to help people to regain their vitality, their energy, because then they feel empowered.
Yeah.
And a woman who is empowered, she is going to have everything that it takes to look after her body, herself, her family, her kids. You know, if she has energy, yes, she can make it happen. If she doesn't have energy, you know, there's nothing that she can do. A woman without energy and without that sense of empowerment, it's like if you were tying their hands. Every time you put someone on a diet, when they're going to go through a process of a physiological a nutritional starvation, they get tired, they get moody, they cannot wait for that diet to finish. So we have women out there living their days, looking on the clock and thinking, I cannot wait until this is over. So imagine what it's like to do a 21-day detox that you just cannot wait until it's over. It's 21 days of your life that you did not live. At least not as you deserved to live. You deserve much more than that.
Oh my gosh, let that one land. I think we're going to have to listeners, I think you're going to need to rewind, because I felt that energetically when you said that with so much power.
Yeah.
It's like, oh my God, that's so true.
Yeah. Okay, imagine how women would be at this stage in our history, in the history of our world, if we were taught to look after our bodies with kindness, if we were taught to maybe focus all our time and energy on our well-being or spirituality or intellectual development. The truth is, most women, since the very early age, are taught to be concerned about the way they look and what they eat. And for some women listening to this podcast, you might never have even thought about it. Maybe it's something that didn't cross your mind. But it's important for us to know that out there, there are kids that at the age of 7 or 8 are put on a diet. And those kids are going to struggle their whole life with body image issues. And with yo-yo dieting, and most of them, unfortunately, may develop an eating disorder, which is something that takes over someone's life. Imagine what a head is that you don't think about anything else but food every single day of your existence. You wake up thinking about food and you go to bed thinking about food. Wow. How sad it is.
And this is all part of that spiritual development and well-being, because it's the mind, it's the emotions, it's the body and the fuel of what we put into it. And all of that is changing our energy. And as you say, that vitality. And I think from my perspective, when people do the diets, and then as you said, they can't wait, you know, when's it in? And then slowly all the weight comes back on. There's that sense, I failed again. I'm useless. I can't do this. It doesn't work. And it just creates such a negative self-deflating cycle.
Yeah, it's very detrimental to women's mental health. What I do a lot as well is to work on reframing some narratives, because most of these women who tried many diets during their lives, they have a very negative self-talk. You know, they're going to tell, that's who I am. I've always been like this. I'm never going to change. I'm fat. I'm ugly. I don't deserve to be loved. It's in my genes. I'm going to die like this. And you go like, whoa, let's unpack all of that. And let's reframe all of that. And let's get to the very bottom of the issue. You know, you're saying that because you started dieting at the age of 7, and 30 years has gone by, 40 years has gone by with that story repeating in your head. Can you see how detrimental that can be?
Oh my gosh, yes, absolutely. And you know what? It happens for men as well as for women. You know,
yes, it does.
My husband had some issues, and you know, I was always the fat kid. The funny thing is, I look at the photos and I actually don't see a fat kid, but he was, you know, and even to this day, still is a driver to him. Do you know what I mean? And as I was getting to know him, watched the pattern of what, you know, where certain things were coming from with food due to being the fat kid.
Yeah. It does affect men, definitely does. I end up working more with women because, for many reasons, but women seem to be a bit more open about, we have a massive issue with, it's part of our culture as well. Men don't feel comfortable opening up and talking about their struggles, but it's definitely an issue. And what you said is also very normal. People looking back at their photos. So that's an exercise that I like doing with my clients, is going and finding a photo of that time of your life when you thought you were fat, when you thought that you were undeserving of love, that you thought that you were ugly. Let's look at this together.
Yeah.
And the result is usually that they go like, well, I wasn't actually. And the other thing that I do as well is doing that every 3 months. It's not part of my approach to do before and after photos. That brings a lot of emotions and a lot of anxiety in a lot of women. So I prefer to steer away from that. But every now and then I like to surprise my clients, because sometimes they'll come to me and say, oh, I'm not seeing results. I'm like, oh, you're not. You just told me that you're getting up earlier, that you're feeling more energetic, that your libido is back, that you don't have heartburn anymore, that your digestion is better. How come you're saying that there's no results? Is that thought that only the number on the scales matter. Yeah. But the funny thing is that when you start moving your body, especially when you start going to the gym and you start exercising, your body composition starts changing. And if you are building more muscle, well, those muscles are going to weight on the scales. Yeah. So I tell these women, like, let's go and find a photo of 3 months ago, shall we? And then they do. And when they look at the photo, they were like, oh my God, there's such a huge change. How come it's not showing on the scales? And then I go on explaining everything else. But it's so funny but sad to see that we put so much pressure on having those numbers. Those numbers dictate if you're going to be happy or sad. Yes. When there's actually so much magic happening in your body, when you start nurturing your body and you start sleeping better and you start having more energy, this is magic alone, isn't it?
I freed myself when I gave up scales, Mariana.
Yeah.
And my personal trainer would just measure me once a week. And I've just come back from Bali, and so I've eaten rices and things like that. And he always says that you do not want to be measured. And I'm like, you know me, measure me. Because if I put on a little bit, that's okay. I know where I'm working towards. But that to me is easy. I can tell from my clothes. Oh, I'm no longer fitting into those jeans, but I found it for myself personally. I was getting on the scales too often, and then I was getting caught in that judgment. Do you find too that women can transform their bodies and their minds and their health and well-being, but still every now and again feel the woman that they once were in terms of the body size? And then look at themselves and then go, oh my God, that's not me, but I was feeling like that was still me.
Yeah. Most women, they come to me with a mindset. They have their mindset in one number. They want to go back to wear the clothes that they used to wear when they were 18. Yeah. But then after 20 minutes of conversation, I found out that this woman had 4 kids and she breastfed and she's menopausal. And we have to have a reality check in here. Yeah. And with a lot of kindness and a lot of empathy, we have to set things straight. Now, where does this expectation come from? Do you actually want to be who you were when you were 18 years old? Or that's just a constant message that it's out there everywhere we go, every sort of device that we turn on, there is a little message saying that we should be skinnier, we should look younger, our skins should have less wrinkle and more elasticity. Yeah. Our culture does not allow us to grow older. It's a prison for women, because we're never going to win this battle unless we come into terms that our body is going to change and then set our priorities right. What is more important for you now? If you're a woman on your mid-40s, what is priority for you now? Do you want to go back to the jeans that you used to wear when you were 18, or you want to age gracefully with energy and vitality?
Yeah. That's how you feel youthful. When you've got all this energy and vitality, that's actually when you feel youthful.
Yeah. Now, it is possible. Yes, it is possible to change your body composition. I work with body transformation, but I always try to bring that as a side effect and I'm
Mhm.
using inverted,
Yeah, yeah.
inverted commas, side effect as everything else that we're going to do. And sometimes women come to the midway through this journey, and after all this self-development and the self-knowledge work that they do, and they get in touch with themselves and they go like, oh, hold on, I don't actually want to fit in those jeans anymore. This was a message that someone else was putting onto me, or an expectation that society has. I don't want that anymore. I'm happy with what I have.
So they're getting in touch with their own knowing of
Yeah.
what their own needs truly are.
Mm-hmm.
Look, the whole process is right up my alley in terms of it just sounds like it's not conceptual. It's
Mm-hmm.
an integrative process in all these different aspects of
Yes.
their life that all
Yeah.
tie also back into food and as you say, vitality and energy. And that's
Yeah.
amazing.
Yeah, there's a beautiful transformation that happens along this process as well. A lot of women tend to eat when they feel emotional. You know,
Yeah.
if they stress or if they're dealing with a feeling that it's uncomfortable.
Yeah.
For some reason, probably something that has developed along their lifetime, they quickly respond to these feelings by reaching out to food.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm sad, I'm going to eat a tub of ice cream. I'm having relationship problems, I'm going to have a block of chocolate.
All
And
the movies tell you to do that too, don't they?
what is that?
All the movies tell you to do that. If
Yeah,
you're going through
exactly.
a relationship
You
trauma,
watch
grab the chocolate and the spoon or the ice cream.
Exactly. Well, the problem with that is that not only we having those health issues and the weight issues that we're seeing these days, but we also not getting in touch with our emotions.
Yeah.
We're not dealing with those emotions. We're just shoving food down our mouth and hoping for the best. And then you see women who are trapped in toxic relationships,
Mm-hmm.
jobs that they cannot stand, living in toxic environments where they don't want to be in. But it's okay because there's a tub of ice cream in the freezer,
Yeah.
and I'm going to be fine tonight. But then tomorrow they need it again, and the day after they need it again. So you see how it's physical,
Mm-hmm.
it's emotional, it's psychological. It's a whole, like if we're talking about layers, it's like a giant onion.
Yeah. Yeah. Let's get to the core of the issue.
Yeah.
And create lasting change and transformation.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my gosh, I love it. So what we will do is we'll have your website at the bottom of the description for the podcast so people can get in touch with you and chat to you and see if that's a great fit. I can already know that you're such a great fit for so many because of the perspective and the heart. Not saying others don't bring heart to it, but I can tell your passion for the transformation of others. So this podcast is called Inner Voice of Knowing. How do you feel that your inner voice of knowing serves you or has a place in your life?
Well, this voice has been, I've been familiar with it for a few years now. It happened in a time that I was not expecting. But once it came to me, I could never shut up again. I could never shut it down again.
Yeah.
It's always with me. And it guided me along this process of changes and pursuing a career, but also pursuing to make a difference, even within the things that I do. Doing a difference, making a difference in people's lives is just part of this voice. And even if I wanted to get out of where I am right now, maybe go back into corporate or doing all the things that society expects us to do, I think that voice wouldn't let me.
I love that. I love that. You've given us so many gems along the way. And I always say this when I have a guest, but I think listeners are going to need to listen more than once, And I do. I have some listeners that will contact me going, oh, I'm just going to listen to such and such again for the third time. It's so good.
I was one of those. Your episode on abundance just stayed with me. It was so beautiful.
Oh, bless. Thank you.
I read it through. I listened to it 3 times.
Well, we tend to listen to something and something stands out.
Mm-hmm.
And then we can go back and you remember that, but something new stands out. So I think it's really powerful to do that. And listeners are going to need to do that with yours because there's just so much there. If you could just leave them with one final message, what would that message be, Mariana?
Oh, it's just so hard to choose one thing. It's, my consultations go for an hour and a half. I want to talk to people to understand exactly where they at. But if I was to leave just one thing for whoever is listening to this podcast, try to get in touch with your body. Try to understand your patterns. What is hunger? What is emotional hunger? What is physical hunger? What is that your body is actually craving and asking for? Have you been dieting for too long? Is your body starving? Maybe your body is starving, and that's where those cravings are coming from. That's why you cannot stop thinking about food, because you're actually going through starvation. So get in touch with your body. Try to drop this dieting mentality and protect yourself from the message that we get from the industries, the health, the dieting industry, the fashion industry, the beauty industry. They're always there reminding us that we're not good enough. So get in touch with your body and do what's best for you.
I love that. And get in touch with someone like yourself that's going to take them on the whole journey.
Oh, yes.
For everlasting change as well, because I know there are times that, we can't see our own blind spots. We can turn our vision inwards, but until we really know how to unpack all of that, we need someone, such as like for me with what I do with people and what you do with the nutrition, but you take that very much that whole mental, emotional approach as well. And that sometimes that's the best investment we can give ourselves.
Absolutely. It is definitely an investment. And working with a team, if you can, it's even more amazing. When you put together spirituality, our psychological and mental health, and our physical health, nothing can stop us. That's when we just thrive. I do have a program that I run that it goes from 6 to 12 months. That's how much I have to work with some people, because there's so much to unpack and there's so much to reframe. It is a beautiful journey. So if anyone listening to the podcast, you can find more about this program. It's called Break Free from Dieting. It is absolutely fantastic. You can find out more about it in my website, on my Instagram. So, Casey, you're going to leave my information here. So I believe you can get it from the podcast, right?
Yes. And you know what? I can totally relate to why someone might need 6 months to a year when they're really unpacking and rewiring, reframing, as you say, and doing the integrative process, because just learning concepts and taking in information doesn't change anything. How many times have people, I've read all these books and nothing's changed. You need to be able to implement it, to actualize it. So
yeah, definitely.
I'm sure they're amazing programs.
Yeah, I'm not here to teach someone that kale is good for you. Everyone knows kale is good for you. We have to go past that kind of information.
Yes.
And work on those layers. Yeah, that's exactly what I like doing. And that's what I do in this program. We go so deep into mindset, beliefs, routine, cultural habits, and family dynamics, the people who are around you. Everything counts when you're trying to change the way you eat. Whether it's for weight loss purposes or for health purposes, we need to do that work.
Fantastic. I've had chills so many times as you've been speaking, which is always confirmation. You're another guest that I could just, keep talking to. But thank you so much for showing up. Thank you for wanting to be on the podcast and bringing forward your passion, your insight, your expertise. It's been an absolute pleasure having you on, Mariana.
Thank you. Every single episode of yours that I listen to, I'm like, oh yeah, I can resonate with that. Yes, let's do this together. I always think about the amount of work that we can both do together. Maybe, we can catch up for a coffee someday.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I would love that. Blessings and thank you so much.
Thank you for having me, Kay. Thank you very much.
Join me on my next episode. And if you love this podcast, please subscribe by clicking on the plus button if you're on Apple, or like and follow on Spotify, rate and review, and please share Inner Voice of Knowing with your friends.